Now I'm getting really nervous.
Yeah. And before we get started, I just want to make sure, Bill, are you with us?
Yes, Matthew, thanks.
Okay, thanks, Bill. So I guess we may as well get started. We're
Okay.
at 6:08. If other folks join us late, that's fine. But we are recording it, so we can distribute this after this meeting for those that weren't able to make it this evening.
And if any of those folks who do look at this as a video have follow-up questions, we'll always be happy to entertain them.
Great, thanks.
Ready to go there, Patrick?
I am.
All righty. Well, thank you folks for joining us this evening. It's a pleasure to be chatting with you about community power. Before we got started, I was talking to Matthew a little bit about some of the timelines of all this, and mentioned that we had been looking at implementing this program 15 months ago with Peterborough. And they were very motivated to be the first town on board. And then COVID happened, and then the PUC delayed things, and then the bridge happened, and the library happened in Peterborough, and then Rodney Bartlett retired. So they weren't the first one on board. So we've been looking at this for quite a while. As surely Matthew knows, but I'll mention this for everybody. Standard Power has worked with the town of Swanzey for electricity for the last 7 years. I'm the president of Standard Power. Initially, that relationship started as what was called the Peterborough Buying Group. So that's another reference to Rodney Bartlett, who started a buying group. And it's grown a lot. We kind of call it the Monadnock Buying Group now, because this group has grown quite a bit. So part of what we do with that is leverage pricing for all the electricity the town has. And we also include a hydroelectric component through net metering. But some of the things we learned early on with looking at community power was that we were over our heads by ourselves. There was just so many elements to the program that aren't part of typical municipal electricity purchasing. There's huge amounts of community awareness, analytics associated with all of the data it creates, onboarding folks, and customer service with folks who are part of your community. So we realized we needed a partner to help us do that with some experience. So what we found was the Good Energy team. And they have a huge amount of experience, not only in the New England ISO, but across the country. So they have a very robust team that is able to do all those pieces that Standard Power wasn't accustomed to. So I'd like to introduce Patrick Roach, who's Director of Innovation at Good Energy, and he'll tell you a little bit about himself and Good Energy.
Yeah, thank you, Bob. And apologies that I clearly haven't updated my headshot in a while here, but that is what's underneath all of this somewhere. So yeah, and just for an agenda tonight, yeah, we'll tell you kind of why we came together as a partnership, and Bob already really kind of started in on that. And we just want to touch base a little bit about your goals, your questions, and then kind of give an outline of how we approach community power and what we've done, our kind of programs in action, as well as how we see really getting to 100% renewable eventually. And although Peterborough, wasn't the first to move forward, Keene really is the first to move forward, and we're working with them, and we'll give you an update kind of about where that stands. So, yeah, as Bob was mentioning, we have over a decade of community power experience as a company, and this is in markets across the U.S. where aggregation or community power is allowed. But we have a New England specific team, and that's where I sit. And we are currently operating over 40 programs in Massachusetts, and we're bringing more online this year. And then also in 2021, we'll be launching the first programs in Rhode Island, the first community power programs there. That's going to be part of a buying group. It's City of Providence will anchor that. And we have 5 other communities right now who will be participating. So one of the things that we are really pride ourselves on is bringing renewable energy into these programs. And one of the ways we've done that is by, in Massachusetts, pioneering bringing in Class 1 renewable energy into the default or standard rate of the program. So this is Class 1 is the new regional renewable energy, as opposed to sort of cheap Texas wind or something. So and often programs may have brought in extra renewable energy as just an optional product, but we pioneered in a way to do it affordably with the default rate that most of the community participates in. So that's been a big focus of ours, but of course maybe even bigger focus is on having economic value. So we're really proud that for all the programs we've operated in Massachusetts, they've all individually saved money over their contract terms compared to the utilities rate. And that even includes those who've been doing extra renewable energy. So that's sort of a bit of our track record and our history. We've got perspective from a lot of different markets around the country, and working in Rhode Island is actually, it's a very similar state and from a regulation standpoint in terms of where New Hampshire is now. They're opening up their first programs. We're working with the regulators to help them figure out how to roll it out, and kind of using best practices from around the country. Bob, anything else you want to add there?
Yeah, a little bit more about Standard Power. The experience with that initial buying group that Swanzey's been a member of for the last 7 years has encouraged us to actually develop 2 more buying groups, so that there's always one renewing, and they're all made up of a good cross-section of school districts and towns and cities. So in each case, they have that leverage of size to reduce rate. In addition, we're now the administrator of the largest net metering program in New Hampshire, which is comprised of over 20 small hydroelectric facilities across the state, some very close to you folks. And the town has enjoyed a net metering reimbursement for most of the time that we've worked together. In addition, we have some towns that have a variety of renewable assets. They have their own solar facilities, and maybe they have a piece of hydro that belongs to the city. So we administer the integration of those things to maximize the net metering benefit, to bring down the net cost of the electricity associated with those schools and towns. We'll talk a lot more about the economic proposition of this as we go along, but it's definitely key to all this. So back to you, Patrick.
Yeah, that's great. So yeah, we're thrilled to partner with Standard Power's local expertise, and particularly with local renewables, so to help communities implement community power. And before we got going and telling you kind of about how we do it, what we wanted to just turn it back over to you quickly to kind of hear about what are your goals as you're thinking of starting to investigate community power. Are there some big key questions that we can keep our mind on as we go through the presentation?
I know I have a few ideas, but I also want to make sure that residents that are participating this evening have a chance to offer up any goals that they might have. So I want to let other folks have a chance to speak up if you'd like, but I've got a couple ideas as well.
Matthew?
Hi, Bill.
Hi. To answer your question, I personally don't have any goals in the sense of having an understanding of a long-term strategy. What piqued my interest was the information relative to Peterborough previously and more currently Keene. And I felt that this was something that we should give to Matthew to investigate, to determine whether it would be in Swanzey's best interest to try to go down the path that they're on. So for me, this is primarily informational. And I agree that if the rest of the board is willing to move forward with it, that we would establish a committee. But I truthfully know very little about it other than what I read in the paper, and I'm hoping to learn more about it this evening.
Great, thanks.
And I guess I'll just offer up a couple, you know, couple goals that I would have with this program. You know, just based on my understanding of it, and both Bob and Patrick have alluded to this. Just the cost savings associated with community power. You know, that's a benefit for residents in terms of a lower utility bill. It's also a benefit for our local businesses in terms of, you know, less expenses going towards utility costs for businesses in town. You know, I like the fact that it does offer more local control, just in terms of where our energy supply is coming from, and you know, being able to invest more in renewable energies, and you know, provide support for those efforts.
Excellent. Yeah, thank you guys. That's great. And we'll be able to kind of address, I think, all those points as we go through. So appreciate the perspective there. So yeah, just to kind of set the stage, so we are all know what we're kind of talking about here. You know, for community power, exactly as Matthew said, this is an opportunity to really localize the control over your energy supply. So your power, you know, to for the end user is made up of two parts: the supply portion and the delivery portion. And the utility, you know, Eversource will always handle the delivery. That means they'll send you the bill. They'll always maintain the wires and the poles, and you can choose, you know, who your supplier is, and they will send that power over the wires, and you'll still get a single bill. So in this case, with community power, the community is making a decision about who that supplier effectively will be for most of the residents and businesses in town. And some basics of how it works is, again, we're focused on the supply portion. When the program launches, there are eligible customers, and that's anyone who is currently on default service with the utility. And that basically means anyone who hasn't actively chosen to sign up with a third-party supplier. So it tends to be the vast majority of residents and small businesses in town. And these eligible customers are eligible for automatic enrollment in the program. So it's an opt-out program. You have to choose to opt out if you are eligible. And anyone else who may have signed up with a third-party supplier, they're welcome to join. It's just not an automatic process. And the way enrollment works is your program will choose one default option to have, and that's what everyone will get opted into. But you can offer other electricity options. Maybe they have different levels of renewable energy, for example. So people can choose one of your optional products, or they can always choose to opt out and not participate in the program. So before the program even starts, people are given the chance to opt out and not participate. And we accomplish this through a really comprehensive education and outreach campaign, which we'll talk more about, but making sure we do the best job possible letting people know what's about to happen and their options for participation. And then once the program does start, there's never any penalty to leave. If you decide after a little while, actually you want to be out, no problem. And if you want to change to one of the other program options, you can also do that at no penalty. So those are just kind of the basics of kind of how the program works. We do get this incredible buying power because it's an opt-out program. I don't know if you want to add anything more to that, Bob?
No, that's great.
Awesome. So we'll tell you about what sort of our approach to implementing these community power programs. Really, it's our approach to helping you design and then implement, you know, a program that meets your goals. And the overarching thing here is that we want to do this. We do this through what's called a competitive retail model. And we'll talk more about exactly what that means throughout the presentation, but all of the programs that Good Energy has implemented so far have used this model, and that's what we're proposing to bring to New Hampshire. That's what we're doing with the city of Keene. So we'll tell you more about that. we kind of have three pillars, I would say, of our approach to helping you with your program. The first is deliver consistent economic value. So we have found that this program, it's critical that it's delivering economic value or savings, so that we maintain participation, because people can leave at any time. They're not captive. We need to make sure this program works for everybody, and that is it's going to be through economic value. And it's also because we want this program to last, for a decade or for hopefully a lot longer. So we want this to be something that the majority of your community stays in, finds value in, and that's what can make the program a success. We also, passionately believe in helping to create new local renewable energy. And the way we want to do that is to take some of that economic value that we have, some of that savings, and leverage that into the in support for new renewable energy, so that it's a win-win, and it's not something that we're just only open to people who can kind of afford to do more. And we've been doing that. We'll tell you a bit more about that with our approach with Class 1 renewable energy, and with partnering up with Standard Power. We've both got some really, I think, great ideas for what to do moving forward. And
Yeah.
Bob, I think you found this as well, right?
Yeah, this is a great point to talk a little bit about both economic value and renewables. Back in 2013 and 2014, Standard Power provided federal wind RECs to all of our clients. There was a glut of these wind RECs, which are the greenness of wind power facilities across Texas and Nebraska. So that was all built out before the too. So it was very low cost thousands of a cent to buy these RECs. So we gave them to all of our clients, about 200 clients actually, and it included the early group that was the Peterborough Buying Group. And then the next year, the market had developed. A lot of large corporations started buying the RECs. Other entities, were buying them at value. So the price went from thousands of a cent to hundreds of a cent. And so we talked to our clients and said, hey, we need to share this cost with you. And of the 200 clients we had, 192 of them declined to do that. So the lesson there was that we really needed to make renewable energy and traditional energy cost less. And that was the start of our hydroelectric program. We started aggregating hydroelectric facilities in late 2014. In 2015, we introduced the group net metering program that towns like Swanzey and Dublin and Peterborough and Hancock and, a whole bunch of others in the neighborhood have participated in right along. And this is using traditional third-party supply, which is regular electricity, and pairing it with a group net metering benefit so that our cost is always lower than the competition out there. So that economic value is now ingrained in our buying groups as not only the ability to have lower cost, but to help these local hydro facilities proliferate. The next step of that is when we actually acquire the RECs, the renewable energy credits, from specific facilities, whether they're hydro or solar in your area, so that you can direct and leverage the power you have through large amounts of buying to increase the development or re-energizing of existing facilities. So that lesson's important, and it's something that we adhere to in all of our Standard Power business, and clearly Good Energy does the same.
Spot on. Yeah, and the third pillar is to integrate innovative products and services. So with that economic base, economic value foundation, as new opportunities are available, bring them into the program to make it even more valuable for your participants, whether that's more really like truly local renewable energy, if it's more innovative rate structures, if we have time of use metering and can can support things like that. So really that we want to keep a focus on that as well. And I think what you'll see kind of overall there is what we want to do is provide you with a model that allows you to provide these benefits of community power with minimal risk and effort on your part. And I think that's what we've been able to do, and we'd like to continue to do. So I think what we want to just walk through quickly the community power implementation and highlight sort of where our services fit in there. So we are really with you from the very beginning, starting with your planning, or with the creation of the plan. So you'll have your community power committee, and we'll be working with you to help draft that plan and also to get public input. So we get the goals of the community, and then we can help build a plan that meets the regulatory requirements and your goals. And what's important maybe to mention in this process is that our compensation comes from the winning supplier. It's the same, it's a per kilowatt hour fee from whoever the winning electricity supplier happens to be. And so there's no direct cost to your municipality. And we start working from the very beginning, essentially at risk. So all of this work is, we get going with you right from the very beginning. Once you have a plan that the committee has approved, we'll help you get the appropriate legislative approval for that. That would be town meeting in your case. And then there's the regulatory step, which is really just notifying the Public Utilities Commission. But on an ongoing basis, we'll be your eyes and ears to be at the PUC, monitoring the dockets, seeing what could be impacting community power, and advocating and letting you know about those. And then we get to the outreach and the launch phase. So once you have an approved plan, we will be looking to go out to bid for an electricity supply that meets those goals. And really, even before we've done that, one of our jobs is to be working with the leading suppliers in the country. You know, there are many, many third-party suppliers, but very few of them are qualified to bid on these aggregations because of their size and the complexity with the number of customers. So we're really working with sort of a handful of some of the best suppliers, and we'll be working to make sure they're aware of the opportunity and you know, sort of what your needs are, so they can, you know, fit their bid appropriately. We'll lead the process of running bids, and that you're never under any obligation to select a winning contract. If the prices don't come back where you want, that's okay. We'll look for another market opportunity in the future. But once you do find a price you like, we are your leads for negotiating the contract. And once you have that in place, then we go into our education and outreach phase, where we are designing materials. We're covering all the costs of design and printing and mailing, all that, to reach your community in as many different ways as possible, so that people know what's about to happen, their options before the program starts, like we talked about before. And then we get to the launch, where we are enrolling the customers, we're managing that process, and now the program's up and running. So what we do, we're your customer support. We are also trying to help you run, we call them opt-up campaigns, but it's awareness of the program and recruiting people into, say, your optional, 100% renewable energy products, for example, helping you drive participation in that. We're managing data, giving you reports that you can assess how the program's working. Is it hitting your goals? Do we need to tweak things? And we're looking ahead and planning for future procurements, how to evolve the program based on innovations in the market and where your goals are. So that's our process. This is kind of a list of those services broken out as well. So what I wanted to just talk about was sort of what we've been able to accomplish to give you a sense of what this could look like for Swanzey. So our model is really road tested, as we'd say. What we're looking, the regulatory framework here in New Hampshire will allow us to do something very similar that we've done in Massachusetts. But we also hope that we can, we believe strongly, we can innovate and take that into some really exciting new places. But for what we have done, this is an example from the town of Arlington in Massachusetts. So they have a standard product. This is the one everyone's automatically enrolled in, where they're looking for a win-win environmentally and economically. So they have added 11% of class 1 renewable energy on top of the state minimum, which was 16% last year. So that's a 27% total. And that amount is actually, it's pretty meaningful, but it's enough that we can still get savings for the individual account holder. And so that's totaled now about $2.6 million program wide for their savings. And the total amount of renewable energy they're purchasing is pretty significant based on the vast majority of their community being in that product. Now they also have a couple other optional products, as I mentioned. So they have a 50% renewable energy product, 100% for those people who really want to have a really bigger climate impact. And they also have a basic product, which just meets the state's minimum renewable energy standards. And the idea there is that there's sort of a place for everyone in the program. And while the utility rates are changing every 6 months, the program is contracted for a 35-month fixed rate. So you can stay in the program, you can find the right mix of renewable energy for you, and benefit from the buying power and the price stability. So you're welcome to check out more at this website for the program there. And this is likely what Keene is looking to do as well.
The only thing is the timing. It may be 12, 24, or more months in a program. So that is a negotiable point for sure.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned that, Bob. So communities, often go somewhere between 12 and 36 months. So what we'll be doing when going to bid for you is not only looking at what's the right price, but what's the right term length. And that's going to be partly based on what we know, about future conditions and a lot of different things. So we'll help you find the right term length that's right for you. And we just wanted to put this in perspective.
Patrick?
Oh, yeah.
Excuse me. Just a question on the previous slide.
Sure.
Do people's rates vary based on which of those 4 categories they choose?
Yes, they do. So the price, basically it's effectively the same base price, and then the extra renewable energy adds certain amounts onto that. So yes, so the price varies slightly, and that standard product has been at a rate where it's been able to save money compared to the utility. The 100% rate is generally more expensive than the utility over the contract term.
Okay, so then the supply cost would be constant for all 4 categories, but depending on the category here that they pick, their rate could be higher or lower than someone else's, their total rate.
Right. Yeah. There would just be 4 rates in this program, four different rates, and based on which one of these products you're in.
Thank you.
Yeah. And we just wanted to kind of highlight how we bring that home here, say to New Hampshire. So this is a graph of the New Hampshire renewable portfolio standard through 2023, and the lightest green color is your class 1 requirement, similar class 1 requirement. And we kind of we sort of showed what if we added 10 percentage points, similar to Arlington at 11%, on top of that in 2021 for your sort of additional. And you can see it would actually get you above 30%, and the New Hampshire RPS doesn't get any higher than 25%, I believe, at the moment. So it actually would be a pretty meaningful increase. And again, it would hopefully be that kind of win-win where you could still have some savings. And I'll let Bob say a little more about this.
Yeah, the other dark green area in 22 and 23 is indicative of a couple of things. One is that folks, once they know about the program and know that they're impacting local renewable energy, might choose to opt up from either any of the plans to the 50 or 100% plan, depending on what you choose to have in your product mix. And then the likelihood is also that there'll be opportunities to develop either local solar or local hydro that would directly impact the community's mix of power. So that's the two elements that feed into that dark green area. And there may even be opportunities, if you choose, to have direct invest opportunities off of your website that we'd put together, if you choose, where community members could have the opportunity to invest in those local renewable programs that the town may be looking at doing. So that's an innovative thing we hope to be doing. It's going to be in the launch in Newport, Rhode Island. And we believe that we have some developers here in New Hampshire that'll help us make that available in some of our initial product offerings with whoever the early adopters happen to be. That they should have that direct invest program right off.
That's a great point. So yeah, I think this is what you could be looking at in terms of having a program that right off the bat, offers choice, offers economic value, and has a meaningful impact on renewable energy. But we do want you to know that we're very focused on the future and innovation, and how do we get to really the high penetration of renewables that's needed for a 100% renewable energy future. And what we wanted to, I think, really stress is that there is a ton of innovation going on, and that this model, the way we operate our programs, can really harness. And a big part of that is that we are we're working, as we mentioned, we're the consultant. We're helping you design the program and really implement and run it. We're helping you procure or find a supplier who can provide the electricity mix that suits your needs. In Massachusetts, we do help communities integrate local renewables into that supply that we ultimately procure. But also these suppliers they're getting the market pressure from all markets around the country where consumers are demanding ways to affordably get more renewable energy. And so there's lots of innovation that's starting to happen. And our role as a consultant is to be out there doing the research and finding what these suppliers are starting to work on, but then also bringing them your goals and really helping kind of create the next solutions and bring them home to your programs. And so I think we like to think of ourselves as both helping to catalyze innovation and also to really harness it and bring it home. And we've kind of started working on this already in a few different ways. Bob, do you want to talk about the Cincinnati model?
Yeah, sure. That's a large scale project. It's 100 megawatts. So, that produces 120 million kilowatt hours, which in looking at community power is not as big of a number as it may sound like, because if we take either Hillsborough County or Cheshire County, each county probably uses 300 million kilowatt hours. So a project like Cincinnati might do 1/3. And there are projects around New Hampshire that are already sited, but don't have off-takers for the power. So they may be available to participate in community power programs and directly impact your power mix. We can do that now with suppliers that exist. These are programs that are already done, by sleeving those large pieces of power into individual communities. Right now, Massachusetts is doing incredible volumes of renewable energy, where they hope to be bringing power down through Maine from Canada, where they're doing wind projects out in the ocean, 12 miles out by Martha's Vineyard in Nantucket, where that power will get sleeved into their portfolio specifically for Massachusetts. Cincinnati's a cool one because they're doing this 100 megawatt program for community power, but it's split between the residents, who are getting 65 megawatts, and then the municipal buildings, which are getting 35% of that. So it's an equitable split between the community power program and the municipal load also. So we don't know if that's the right way to do it specifically for any individual town. And we think that each individual town we work with will customize these programs to fit their needs. And some will be very aggressive and some will be less aggressive. We don't know how that will shake out, but we're very happy to work with anybody and help them develop a program that fits their community perfectly.
Yeah, that's great, Bob. So yeah, I think we're really excited that we are seeing these programs and suppliers, working to figure out ways to put new renewable energy at scale, onto the grid. And so we want to help. That's sort of where our vision is. And of course, doing it affordably is critical. And with Newport, as Bob mentioned, they're on an island. They're at the end of a natural gas line. They are really focused on local in-community renewable energy ways that they can actually reduce their use, particularly during those peak times in the winter when gas in our region is on short supply. So we'll be working with them on strategies for that. So there's a lot of, I think, exciting stuff going on that we would be looking to help bring in. So just talking about Keene, just quickly giving you a little update there. So Keene did a request for proposals this late summer, early fall, and selected our combined team. And so we dove in with them on the planning process. And we really kicked this off with a few public forums in early December. And that was sort of an initial community education piece. We opened up a survey that we built, both a web survey and paper, to collect input about preferences for products, renewable energy, ways to reach people through education. And we're putting together a draft plan based on that now and based on where the regulations are. We'll be bringing that draft plan back to the community in late January. And as part of this process, we also developed some educational videos so people, before they answer the survey, can learn a little bit about what community power is and what they're trying to do. You can check those out at that link below. And as I mentioned, we really lead all of that education and outreach effort. So our staff does the graphics and works with you to figure out, what do we need, what's the right messaging, but we do all the heavy lifting. And as many of you may know, we have the state statute about community power. We're waiting for the PUC to finalize the regulations to implement that. But we've been participating in their processes so far, and based on where the utility systems are today and where the kind of draft regulations have been, we have a really good idea of where this is going, and it's lining up really very well with the kind of competitive retail model that we have and that we're looking to implement. So we'll be waiting to implement until those regs are done, but this planning process is really in the works, which is great to see. And just to close it out here, we've mentioned this competitive retail model, and what we wanted to just highlight is that there are kind of two models in operation today, in where community power is in operation. So ours is the competitive retail model. As I mentioned, we act as a consultant to you, and we help find the electricity suppliers to supply the program. The other model is really called the California model, because it's in California. And they do have a lot of differences, but one of the biggest ones is how they deal with acquiring and creating the actual electricity supply. So to do that, there are a lot of functions that go into creating that electricity supply, and we've got them listed here. So you need to do forecasting for your load and the pricing. Then you have to do procurements for all the different pieces. You have to procure the energy, capacity, ancillary services. Then you take title to all of that. And because you've taken title to it, you put in place financial hedges against that. Then when the actual load occurs, you do a settlement against your forecasts and what you had procured, and make the appropriate adjustments and do additional procurements. this all requires managing contracts and credit. And really to do this, you need expert staff and a standalone entity, who can do this kind of contracting. So there's a lot there. And in deregulated markets like New Hampshire, we have access to large entities who are specialized in doing all of those things. We call them suppliers. And like I said, there are many, many suppliers out there, but for aggregations, we're really only working with a subset of the most sophisticated and experienced that can handle these projects. And so we call it the competitive retail model, where we use the supplier and the consultant. And this is what you see in really over 700 programs that are operating in the deregulated states where these programs are active. And this is the reason we sort of follow this model, is that having access to the supplier is a real advantage, right? We can let them be specialists and work on these things. And then we can focus with you on providing excellent customer service, top-notch education and outreach, but then also really focusing our efforts on how do we integrate local renewable energy and really meet your goals and find the best innovations and bring them in. And so it really allows us to focus on the critical pieces. The other side of that is the California model, where you effectively replicate all of these functions that the supplier does by building your own standalone agency. And there, and the reason really California has gone this way is that they're not fully deregulated. And so they don't actually have access to the competitive suppliers in the same way that you do in New Hampshire and other deregulated markets. So they've kind of had to replicate those functions. And there are a number of unique pieces to their model. So our kind of approach is we've seen the competitive retail model work really well, and I think it's slated to work really well here in New Hampshire. It's what we're getting going with Keene, and we really look forward to getting it in action. Bob, do you want to add anything to that?
I think the complexity of developing a external supplier company is huge. The third-party suppliers we work with now are highly market-driven already. We have suppliers that are asking us, how they can develop 100% product in the future that will not only satisfy community power programs, but large national and regional companies that already have made their decision to be greener or 100% green in the future. So those timelines are driving the industry to have products that answer those opportunities now with the development of some of the offshore wind that's being developed, storage products that are now starting to proliferate. So the third-party suppliers don't want to miss this opportunity. Rebuilding the millions of dollars they've invested in building these products for the future is a very difficult proposition to do uniquely for New Hampshire. Many of these companies are doing volumes that outrun all of New Hampshire, making one purchase at once for community power. So we think it's best to have that leverage with the third-party suppliers, like you already have. Some of the names you've enjoyed serving you, like Constellation is one of them, are some of the biggest and most ethical companies in the country. They're looking towards a future where they have 100% products, and we think those will be the right matches for our communities in New Hampshire.
So thank you so much. We'd love to answer questions and hope that was a good kind of overview of community power and what we can do.
Thank you, Robert and Patrick. That was a great presentation, very informative. So I definitely learned a lot from that.
Good. Where's Mike?
I'm not sure. I thought he'd be joining us this evening.
I did too.
Well,
I'll tell him you were looking for him.
All right.
Michael would have been with us, but he has another official duty to deal with tonight.
I'm
okay,
sorry.
well,
Otherwise, he would have been happy to be here.
All right, well, I'll offer up a personal overview for Mike. I always enjoy working with him.
Thank you. Appreciate hearing that.
Oh yeah, I I I always enjoy working with your community. I'm from Lineborough. I lived in Lineborough, New Hampshire for 30 years, and there's nothing I like better than being able to work in Western Hillsborough County and Cheshire County. So that's a lot better than working off to the eastern part of the state.
Yeah,
Well, let's hope we can keep it that way for you.
we share that feeling.
Yeah, I hope we can keep it old-fashioned New Hampshire as long as possible.
I had a quick question. I know that Patrick, I know Good Energy is working with Keene right now. Just curious, are you currently working with any other communities in New Hampshire?
Not at the moment. So we've been talking to a lot of other communities
Yep.
like this and letting them know kind of what's going on. So yeah, that is.
What I would say though is if for folks who choose to be an early adopter, they can join in with the bones of what the Keene project is. So purchasing electricity for say an aggregation of towns is very possible, like we do for the municipal buying groups we have. But that also doesn't force us to have the same plan. We could have the same purchase of electricity while individual towns could customize their plans for their goals. So we can leverage volume without giving up the individual customization of towns.
Yeah, and that's a great point, Bob. Keene has indicated a desire, to possibly lead like a regional effort if there are other communities who are interested. And as Bob has, done buying groups, we've done those too in Massachusetts with community power programs. So we've got a lot of expertise in that, and it can, help you, get additional economies of scale.
And oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I'll wait for you, Matthew.
Oh, just a quick question also for Patrick, just in terms of kind of the ongoing support services provided by Good Energy. You talked about, towns typically will negotiate a 12 to 36 month contract. I'm assuming Good Energy would kind of help Swanzey renegotiate that contract after that period of time lapses. Is that right? Yep.
That's right. Yeah. What we'd be doing is, as early as 12 months or even a little bit more before your current contract expires, is we'd really be looking at where the market is and looking at renewal opportunities that would take effect. Yep.
Okay.
I just have a basic question. So I'm trying to picture where the power is going to come from. And I didn't completely understand that part of it. So like maybe it's too early to answer this, but in Keene, for instance, where are they going to be buying this power from? What sort of mixture, or what's the range of ideas?
So there's a couple of answers to that question, but all of New England is members of the New England ISO. So really, the electrons are all kind of brewed together and distributed across our distribution system that includes all of the New England states. There's a few input positions where New England can acquire power from both New York and Canada. So there's a couple of places where New England ISO can purchase power if needed, or PJM from Pennsylvania. But when we talk about local renewable projects, some of those can go directly into your power stream. So for instance, there's probably a good handful of houses that already have solar power on them. And there may be some businesses who have solar. So that power actually is already in your community. The other piece of this conversation is the actual attribute that is called greenness. So when we use the term renewable energy credit, we're talking about a financial construct that allows the greenness of a renewable project to be bought and sold independently of the true power. So by supporting a local project and buying the RECs that help finance that project, we can support local renewable energy projects in your community. In addition, if we have a direct invest program, community members can buy into and profit from the development of a local solar project, say, or the re-energizing of a local hydro program by purchasing RECs that are as local as possible.
Mm-hmm.
The two levels of that answer. It's a, and we're working with the PUC to give communities and businesses more flexibility in truly where their power comes from and their ability to increase their local solutions.
So the ultimate goal then is to get more of these local renewable projects.
Yes, that's our belief, is that the more local projects you have, the better, for a couple of reasons. One is it helps us move towards a greener future. And, you know, some of the ethics associated with the state of New Hampshire are being outdoorsy and taking care of Mother Nature. So, you know, there's that part of it, but there's also the part that becomes the cost of bringing power from monstrous projects
Like Quebec Hydro or something, or Hydro Quebec.
Yes, or Cape Wind.
Yeah.
So when you look at power that costs very little for the electrons, but has a huge cost associated with the transmission and distribution because it has to come so far from so far away,
Right.
the total cost that you end up paying for those two elements is probably greater than doing local projects that provide a different benefit that we haven't even mentioned, which is resilience. So if you have local power, local storage, and some ability to isolate off the grid for a chunk of the town, you have the ability to power back on even in a grid emergency. If we're depending on all of our power to come off of transmission lines, and there's a grid emergency and those transmission lines are down or incapable of processing to us, then we have no ability to get power until those transmission lines are back up. So the opportunity to have local projects is of immense benefit to a community.
Yeah, no, I can see that. My husband and I have had solar on our house for about a year. We don't have any batteries yet, so we're not completely self-sufficient, but it's definitely been interesting, and it's making me think more about local solar projects, and having seen more in Massachusetts and some other states than I've seen here in New Hampshire.
Well, some of the other states are a little more generous than New Hampshire is towards projects like that. We're hoping in a PUC docket that starts on the 25th to monetize the attributes of reducing transmission cost through storage, so having batteries. So right now, for you and I have solar on my house too. A battery really doesn't do much for us because the utility is forced to behave like a battery. Now, they don't give us anything extra for behaving like a battery. So there's a future where if you and I choose to put those batteries next to our connection of the solar system and can run our own house at times when there's stress on the grid, reducing that stress could be monetized, and we might enjoy a better value for our solar systems by relieving that stress at peak times.
Yeah.
And those are things we're working with our legislators and the PUC to accomplish. Now, if you think about that on our individual houses level, it might be significant. But now let's say we have 500 houses or 1,000 houses that not only have their Powerwall battery, but a third of them have EVs. They have transportation that has battery in that. And that battery's online too when it's plugged into our house. So now we have two batteries, and the benefit of that when the grid is stressed out could be even greater. So those are futures where having local energy solutions work best.
Thank you.
My pleasure.
Yeah, I think that was a great question. And I would just also add, in Massachusetts, as Bob said, yeah, the power's got to be coming from New England or from Eastern Canada or New York. But for the extra renewable energy that we include, that voluntary amount, say it's 10%, we've worked to try to source that as locally as possible, and keep it within state if possible. So I think working with Bob, we'd also look to do that right out of the gate. How local can we get that?
Yeah, so there's local projects we support now, like there's a hydro facility in Marlow, one in Milford, a couple in Hinsdale, couple up a little bit north in Claremont. So these are all hydro facilities we support. In addition, we've been involved in the development of some of the larger projects around, like a little bit with the airport project in Keene and Swanzey. Really, it's in Swanzey to benefit Keene, but we've been involved in that. Some of the Nashua solarization projects, the Peterborough megawatt and additional projects going on in Peterborough at this time. So those are all things where we've worked as a consultant to help make sure those projects, A, are built out appropriately, but B, have economic value.
I'm just going back to Bill's question earlier about the the rates too. We didn't put, when we talked about Arlington, we actually didn't put the per kilowatt hour rates in the presentation just because the Massachusetts market is at a pretty different price point in general than New Hampshire, just based on many different that website see their prices. I think the relative difference, would probably be about the same, but definitely don't take any stock in the raw numbers, given that because the markets are so different.
So any help we can give you, even at this early stage in developing and educating a committee, we're happy to do that. We're also more than happy to share anything we do with Keene. It's all public already, and with other communities that we'll be presenting to. So we're trying to work hard with all of the buying group members we have around you, so that maybe in a next round of communities at this time next year, we have a big chunk to add on.
Well, thank you, Bob and Patrick. It was very informative. As I mentioned, I knew very little going in. I still know very little, but I do know more than I knew before, and I appreciate it. And we'll work with Matthew to establish a committee. Matthew, we should be able to do that in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, definitely, Bill. I think as a next step, I can work with Michael and just find a good Board of Selectmen agenda to bring this forward to, and just kind of provide a brief summary to the board. And certainly, I think it's something worth moving forward for the town.
So for y'all, our next meetings have to do with the budget, which is tomorrow, and then we have finalization of the warrant, and then prepare for our deliberative session. But I think once we're through with the deliberative, Matthew, that would be a good time.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. I know we have a lot of heavy lifting in the next few weeks here. So.
Yeah.
Yep.
Great. Well, any help we can
Matthew,
offer.
Matthew, you've got somebody online here who is a willing participant, I suspect.
I hope so. And I know that Barbara Scully expressed an interest too in participating in a committee. So
yeah,
we'll make it as easy as possible.
Do you recommend a particular size committee? I know we try to keep our committees as small as possible, but at the same time, we know there's a lot of work that people need to do, but too many people on the committee tend to lead to stagnation.
Absolutely. Somewhere between 4 and 40.
We'll definitely be well below the 40.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I might offer too that, you know, part of our role is to help you get really good, robust public input into the program. So you don't necessarily need to have a committee that's that huge, because
Yeah.
we will, the committee is not the main source of the input. They are the guiding force, but that's a big part of our role, is to help you really reach the broader community.
And what actually is your role, and how are you compensated for that?
So what we do, we have a per kilowatt hour fee, and the winning supplier pays that to us. So that fee is the same, doesn't matter which supplier is chosen. So we are totally supplier agnostic, and we don't get that fee until power is flowing. So that implementation process we walked through, where we are working with you, you know, all the way up to the bid day, and you can walk away at any time before you've signed a supply contract, and there's nothing owed to us. And if that sounds too good to be true, it's really just because as we mentioned, we're running a lot of programs, and so this isn't this is how we run all of our programs, and we have the sort of the stability to be able to do that. And then the supplier, so then what would happen is you pay your electricity bill to Eversource. Eversource takes out the portion that goes to the supplier. They give it to the supplier, and the supplier gives us our per kilowatt hour fee. So all of those savings I mentioned that we've had, that is inclusive of our fee.
And that's pretty much how we've always worked with the community since 2013 for municipal and school electricity.
Great.
If there's nothing else, just again, I want to thank Bob and Patrick for taking time this evening. And this was, like I said, this was very helpful, and I appreciate you meeting with us.
Oh, it's a pleasure, Matthew. It's good to spend some time with you also, and we look forward to helping you any way we can along the path to this program.
And yep, so I've recorded this meeting, so I'll also, for those that weren't able to attend the presentation tonight, I can share a recording of this meeting, so they will have all the information that you provided tonight.
And if there's ever follow-up questions, you're welcome to direct them to me.
Okay, great.
All right. Have a great evening. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Good night,
Thanks.
everyone. Thanks again. Take care.